In today's video, let's talk about why you don't have to worry about the red line of death. It is not the return of the red ring of death. And after that, while there were some reports of SteamOS 3.8 regressing performance on the Steam Deck, they fixed that in the latest beta and also improved very heavy games VRAM usage pretty much across the board. How's it going? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you had a great Independence Day and got to play some video games and hopefully spend some time outside. I did get my email for the Steam Machine order at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday night. I ordered it Sunday morning, so that is coming. Thank you once again to all the people who emailed me, DM'd me, replied to me here, replied to me on Twitter, offering to let me borrow or take their reservation for the Steam Machine. I really appreciate it. That is extremely cool of you. I no longer need it. And finally, 82% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. So if you're one of them, subscribe, set your notifications to all. And finally, please check out my Instagram, Champagne Ready, which is linked in the description. But with the intro, the long-winded intro, I will stop doing them long-winded in the future. Out of the way, let's get into the first news story here and talk about the red line of death. Obviously, there was a huge news story going around about the red line of death on the Steam Machine that started on Reddit. And essentially what happened was they used it for 30 minutes, then they put it in sleep mode, and when they turned it back on, there was a red line on the LED bar and nothing would happen. They were obviously pretty pissed off because, you know, this thing was announced in November. The price is higher than people want it to be. They finally get their order email. It shows up a few days later. They get excited to play some games, and then bam, you got a red LED line across the LED bar and your thing doesn't work that you just paid over $1,000 for. I'd be pretty irritated too. So naturally, they went to Reddit, the Steam Machine subreddit, and said, hey, what does this mean? I want to use my Steam Machine and I can't. And naturally, this took hold and spread all over the internet because for some reason, some of the bigger sites like Eurogamer, for example, have a major hate boner for the Steam Machine and everything Valve is doing because they're not Sony, I guess. Like, I never bought into the mythology of there being an absolute glaze fest for Sony. How can we make this about Xbox or Valve being bad? But after this week, when Sony announced the death of physical games and everyone turned it into, how can we make this about Xbox? Oh, Xbox is expected to not have a disk drive too. What are my sources? Trust me, bro, I fully buy in now. There is absolute glazing going on for Sony. But yeah, getting back on track, naturally, this spread very quickly like wildfire all over the internet. There were articles, there were videos, people frothing at the mouth with the possibility of being able to milk a negative news story about Valve again for months. Is the red rings of death back from the 360? We don't know. And then it turned out that it was only affecting like one or two people and it wasn't a critical hardware failure like, you know, all these articles were positing. They were like, is it the GPU failing? Is it a critical part failing? No, what it turned out to be was a weird update failure. So all you had to do was go into the BIOS or re-image SteamOS. Once you completed that 5-minute process, everything was fine, everything was copacetic, and this person was able to get back to gaming. Now, they did update and say that they shouldn't have gotten so mad or like made their Reddit post. I wouldn't go that far. Like, I've bought stuff in the past that I was really excited for, and then I finally get my hands on it and it doesn't work. There is nothing more frustrating or soul crushing than that type of experience. It just sucks when, especially, you're sinking thousands of dollars into this stuff. I know no hardware product or hardware launch can be perfect, and Valve has definitely had their fair share of launch issues, like with the Steam controller missing a critical feature at launch, so they had to push multiple updates over the weekend, the constant firmware updates, the Steam Deck dock being broken for months, SteamOS not working as intended on the Steam Deck for the first couple of weeks and getting new updates every single night. Like, Valve definitely has their fair share of weird issues that, you know, I tend to look over because they're a small company. I like the way they operate. And once you start getting into this like perfectionism level that someone like Sony has, where they just like say deal with it whenever there's a mistake and they never address it, you stop hearing from them altogether, like how they're completely missing in action right now for going on 5 days ever since they announced they're killing physical games. I don't want that for Valve. I want Valve to stay this open, cool, and connected company that they are. Like, they could talk a little more, but I'd say we're generally speaking fine with them. But yeah, in this case, I completely understand why the person was upset and frustrated, and I think honestly they were completely justified in feeling that way. And going to Reddit just makes sense to me because while Twitter will definitely give you reach if there's a negative thing like that, I mean, it's just like a big group of people who A, would like to know if there's a critical hardware failure on the $1,000 PC they just bought, and B, would probably be the best place to look for a solution to the problem, which it turned out to be because people immediately flooded the Reddit post with tons of ways to fix this issue potentially, and thankfully one of them worked. So To sum this news story up, you don't got to be worried about the red LED light of death if you got your Steam machine in. If this was enough to sway you from not necessarily hitting that 3-day window to order your Steam machine, you also don't have to worry about it. And just be careful reading these articles about Valve lately. I don't know why for the past year or so, it's been like targeted on Valve's back, like with just pure negativity. And I genuinely don't understand why, because as someone whose main device is my SteamOS PC and the Steam Deck, yes, there definitely are little annoying issues from time to time, but the benefit of dealing with that is, genuinely speaking, the best platform for gaming bar none. Like, even though it's all digital, I don't have a problem with it because A, the vast majority of games on Steam actually are DRM free. Even the ones that ship with the Nuvo eventually take it out, and then you can just move the game files to a SSD, hard drive, thumbstick, whatever you want, and keep it forever, even and play it without your Steam account. And B, if you made a line graph of all the positive things Valve has done for gaming, and then on the other line you had all the negative things, if you scaled it to proportion, the negative bar would not be visible. It would be like 1 pixel high, whereas the positive bar would be like off the charts. So while you have to be skeptical with any corporation or company, whether they're private or public, I think generally speaking, compared to Nintendo, compared to Xbox, compared to PlayStation, Valve has had the least mega controversies for good reason, because they're made up of people who actually play games and they want to make an experience that makes it easy and fun to play games, and that's what they've done. And speaking of that, that brings me to the second half of this video. SteamOS 3.8 is out, and as someone who's made update videos for over 4.5 years now, I had a lot of people in my replies and in my DMs saying you've got to talk about the performance regression with SteamOS 3.8. And the reason I didn't rush to make a video is because A, I've done this before, I've been in this situation, and by the time I usually make those videos, when people are upset about a weird performance regression in a very specific game, it's usually fixed within a few hours, and then the video is redundant by the time I post it, which is, by the way, exactly what happened this time. And B, it's usually very specific games that not a lot of people are playing, whereas the vast majority of games either get performance improvements or stay the same. So when it comes to that, I usually like to let the dust settle before, making a negative video where I'm full of irritation at, releasing a SteamOS update that regresses performance. And like I just said, a lot of those issues were fixed immediately through updates to Proton or hot fixes to SteamOS, but also the next SteamOS update is in beta right now. It's 3.8.2, and not only does it, again, fix all those issues, but also helps with games that have VRAM problems on the Steam Deck as well, like Doom the Dark Ages, for example. Games that cap out the VRAM very quickly, no matter what settings you're on, because they have forced ray tracing. Those types of games are getting huge performance benefits, like better 1% lows and a lot less stuttering thanks to this update. But on top of that, if you've noticed that your Steam Deck OLED is a little bit slow despite having great internet when it's downloading games or updates like I have a gigabit, I have extenders all over my house. Like, the lowest my internet goes is like 650 down and up throughout my entire house, even through my plaster walls, which is kind of insane. And you've beat your head against the wall by going into developer settings and turning on the 5 gigahertz better performance toggle that's hidden away for some reason and not really seen increased speeds. They've fixed that finally with this new SteamOS update 3.8.2. So not only will you get faster downloads, you'll get faster uploads of saves. When you close a game, it'll boost the save to the Steam cloud, and also your game should patch a lot quicker. But the one thing I really wish they would double down on fixing is how long it takes to patch some games like Diablo 4. I did the fix where you remove the HD texture pack that you're not even using on the Steam Deck, which has a hidden benefit of reducing the game's file size by a lot. But even with that, it still can take 15 to 30 minutes to patch this game. And because it's a live service game, they're pushing out patches constantly. So like every time I boot up my Steam Deck and I go to downloads to see what new updates there are that I need to like reconfigure and push to the top of the list, not only is Diablo 4 always there, which is annoying because they never can release a finished update, it always wants to download that first, and then the list of new updates after that piles up underneath it. So I have to always, take the time to move it to the bottom. That's the issue that I want them to tackle next. I've been talking about it for years. It seems like it's been punted down the road. It's been long enough, because this is not just a Steam Deck issue. Diablo 4 takes forever to update on my SteamOS PC, which I've said before is like literally one of, if not the best PCs you can build exclusively for SteamOS. 9070 XT, 9800 X3D, 32 gigs of RAM, pretty solid cooling all around. and it takes forever to patch some games. And I don't think it should work that way, because for all the bitching I do about PlayStation's lockdown ecosystem and Xbox trying to figure out a game mode or Xbox mode, whatever they're calling it today, their games patch a lot quicker unless you're using the Xbox app on PC, and then it's a total crapshoot. But when it does work, it is a little bit quicker than SteamOS, and I think Valve should work on that. But yeah, if you saw performance regressions, your options are wait for this to exit beta, which should happen within the next few days, maybe by the time this video is even posted, or if you just can't handle the small performance regression you were seeing, just update to the beta and stay on that, and you'll get the latest update that fixes these issues. But yeah, every time they release a big numbered SteamOS update, whether it's 3.3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 8, it happens every time. There's people who are playing one obscure game that kind of slipped through the cracks and doesn't play nice with the new updates to SteamOS or the new graphics driver, and every time within just a couple of days or even a few hours it's fixed. So didn't want to blow that one out of proportion because I've been bit by that in the past. So yeah, I can't believe we're finally in July. 2026 is flying by. I'm really curious how Halo Campaign Evolved is going to run on Steam Deck. They did show it running on the Steam Deck in their co-op trailer. It says it's optimized for Steam Deck and ROG Xbox Ally X on the Steam page, but we'll just have to wait and see, because they also put out the PC requirements and they're pretty hefty. Hopefully they just shot a little high, like higher than they needed, like James Bond 007 First Light did. But again, hopefully I get a code for that. I'm expecting to. I'll let you guys know how it runs. But yeah, crazy week for news overall. We got the red line of death. We got Xbox not killing off the 5 studios that everyone was promising they would last week, and now suddenly everyone's changing their tune and figuring out how to not criticize Sony, and like the end of physical games. So it's a wild week. I'm excited for the 2 hosts this week because I'm sure there will be a lot to talk about. My Steam machine is packaged, so hopefully it gets here soon. Excited to get my hands on it and make some videos. But yeah, that's all I've got for you in this one. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.